Welcome to another episode of NBPD. I'm Chief Joseph Cordeiro, and with me today is Lieutenant Nate Rodriguez.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being present with us today as we air our episode with our Detective Division. Won't you join us as we meet Captain Souza, commanding officer of that division?
Today we're going to be getting a glimpse of what goes on in our criminal investigations, major crimes, property crimes, to homicides. So as Lieutenant Rodriguez said, let's take a walk inside and meet Captain Al Souza. As you can see, we're just coming into Captain Souza's office. He's the commander of the Detective Division.
Captain Souza?
So we're here with Captain Al Souza from the commander of the Detective Division. Al, maybe you can tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Basically, I'm the captain here in charge. I've been in the department for about 24 years now. I've worked different assignments in the department. I've worked some special assignments already in the department with the drug unit, the gang unit. I was assigned to the gang unit at the time. So spent some time with the uniform division. Was promoted from sergeant, lieutenant to captain, and I'm in charge of the major crimes unit.
Yeah, Captain Souza has an extensive investigative experience. As he said, he worked in narcotics for a long time, was one of our star players. He worked with the DEA as a task force agent. He's a very humble man, so he's not going to give you that whole litany of what he's done. But Captain Souza, could you tell our viewers a little bit about what you like to do outside the job, so you get a perspective about Al Souza as a man?
So I enjoy running, physical fitness. Obviously, my passion is soccer, as you can see from the banners that I have.
I noticed that nice Benfica banner up there.
Yeah, also Santa Clara from the island of St. Michael. And spending quality time with my family and my son. So those are things I enjoy the most.
Captain Souza, can you explain to our viewers some of the responsibilities that you have as the commanding officer of this unit?
Sure. So this unit's in charge of investigating all the major crimes in the city. The most crimes that we get involved with is the violent crimes and property crimes. Violent crime is where the person itself becomes the victim of the crime. So we're talking about, aggravated assault, armed robberies, homicides. Property crimes is where the person's not the victim of the crime, but our properties are the victim of those crimes, which is our homes, our cars, our belongings. So those are the two major type of crimes that we get involved in investigating the most in this unit.
Captain Souza, for our viewers to really understand how vast the Detective Division is, can you talk about some of the various units under your command in the investigation unit? Sure.
With the addition of the major crimes, I am also overseeing the juvenile family service unit, which involves the investigate juvenile crimes, sex crimes, and domestic violence, our firearms bureau, and the court liaison positions.
Captain Souza, you also have crime scene investigations, right? You have ID that does fingerprinting, crime scene investigations, and the firearms bureau. Can you tell us a little bit about what that enables in that unit?
Sure. So ID and unit processes all the crime scenes, by one of the crime scenes and photographing the evidence, recovering the evidence at crime scenes and submitting that for lab analysis. And our firearms bureau is involved with all the licensing for firearms and all our training for qualifications for firearms.
That's great. You also do fingerprinting out of the ID bureau. That's correct.
Correct.
And you also have an evidence officer. Maybe you can explain a little bit about that. That's assigned to your unit.
So the evidence officer is in charge of processing all the evidence and entering the evidence into police reports, and then taking that evidence to the lab for analysis.
And you secure and catalog all this evidence here at headquarters in a secured room, right?
Correct.
Lieutenant Rodriguez, you have some other follow-up questions for the captain?
I sure do. Captain Souza, can you explain to our viewers how it works, how many officers actually work under the Detective Division, how their shifts are structured, and Are they pretty much on duty 24 hours a day? How do they respond to calls?
Well, sure. So I have a total of, in this unit here, I have a total of 17 assigned. Some will investigate the property crimes, some will investigate the violent crimes. My violent crime side of the unit is on call 24 hours, 7 days a week. We maintain detectives on calls. For stuff that happens overnight, we'll come out on any case that requires follow-up investigations.
So your officers are on call the detectives are on call 24 hours a day. At any time, they may have to leave a birthday party, a wedding, or some other function to respond to what kind of calls?
The calls that you follow up as far as violent crimes, shootings, stabbings, unattended deaths. So those are all the type of cases that we do follow up after hours.
Very successfully, I might add.
I'm hoping.
Yeah.
Captain Souza. Okay. All right. Okay. Who was it at? Okay, 1 hour. Okay. All right. So this was just a call that I just took from our uniform division. We have a shooting on Purchase Street. So uniform's there right now, securing the scene. So we'll be responding with a team of detectives and do the follow-up investigation.
That's a great opportunity for us, Lieutenant Rodriguez. We can go down there and get a first-hand view and see how our detectives operate.
Sounds like a great idea, Chief. Come with us and we'll show you how we conduct our crime scene scenarios.
So we're now at 1204 Purchase Street where there's been shots fired. This is where we're responding. We have an active crime scene going on, an active investigation. The lieutenant in charge of the investigation is going to be Lieutenant Scott Carollo. He's already presently here at the scene with a couple of investigators, so we're going to talk to them and see how they process in the scene.
Great. Let's go talk to Lieutenant Corolla.
This is Lieutenant Carollo, and he's in charge of the crime scene here.
Captain, I was called to this scene for shots fired. Patrol response was initiated, and when they came to the scene, they found some shell casings. So the shell casings, the crime scene is being worked right now by Detective Saunders, who we have nearby. I've also assigned Detective Roberts to the case in order to determine if we have any witnesses or any suspects at this time.
Great. Is Detective Saunders around? So she can explain to our viewers her role in the crime
Yes, sir. I have Detective
preservation
Saunders
and evidence collection.
I do. I have Detective Saunders in the next room as well as Dr. Roberts.
Oh, great. Let's go talk to Michaela.
Everyone, this is Detective Michaela Saunders. She's one of our detectives in our Major Crimes Division and also does identification as well.
Today you're filling in, right, Detective Saunders, for Detective Claudia Sampson, who generally manages all the crime scene investigations and evidence collection, right?
Correct.
Maybe you can walk viewers through what you've done here today and the importance of the evidence, to the law enforcement.
Generally, my job is to document, conserve, and preserve the evidence so we can send it away for processing. And we use anything that may help us in the investigation in regards to any latent fingerprints that can be covered, any DNA that might be left on the scene, shell casings that we can associate with a particular gun, anything like that that we can send out that may help us in the future with this case. Any evidence that I recover that will be processed for fingerprinting, I use different methods such as the fuming method where I will fume something with superglue. The fumes of the superglue will attach to the oils left behind in the skin and will attach itself to the friction ridge detail. And then when it's done fuming, I'll be able to bring a latent print up and see the actual ridge detail, which can then be used to identify and make an identification. So basically what we're doing now is we put super glue on a heated element, which helps the super glue become fumes. And I'm going to put iodine tablets inside the bag. We always use gloves because these are chemicals and they will have an adverse effect on your skin. So inside are little iodine crystals. So we crack it. We let the crystals pour in. And one of my instructors at the FBI Academy call this a shake and bake method. So now what the iodine is doing is interacting with the oils on the lieutenant's skin, and if you look close enough, so you will begin to see the iodine interact with the oils in his skin and his friction ridge detail. His fingerprints are now appearing where you did not previously see them. We'll actually take pictures of the friction ridge detail with and without scale, which is a ruler that we'll use, and we'll submit the photographs instead of the full piece of evidence to the state police lab in intent to identify whoever it was. All right, so this is a fuming chamber. Just kind of like what we just did, just a little more technical. Basically what happens is when the super glue turns into fumes, it goes up. So I did it off camera. When I opened up my bin, I did it outside because all the super glue fumes come up into the air. What this will do when you open the top is vent out to the top of the building, so it's safe and the chemicals don't get in your face, because if you go right in there when you take off that top and that super glue hits you, you can super glue your eyelid. This has happened before, though not to me, but we like to keep things as safe as we can so we prevent injuries like that from occurring, or else you're going to end up in an emergency room.
Detective Saunders, I noticed we have some casings here. You've numbered them out with the cones. Can you explain why the value is of having all these cones numbered where the casings were found? And also, what kind of evidence do you hope to be able to get from those casings?
The way we number evidence helps us walk us through a crime scene. So basically, when we're presenting this case at trial or for the investigators, we're walking you through a crime scene that you are not at. So my idea is to paint a picture in your head of what had happened, and the numbers help me do that. The shell casings can help us tie what kind of weapon was used, and can also link it to other crime scenes where the same weapon might have been used.
Sometimes, can I pick one of those up? Is that all right? You've already processed it?
I have already processed it. Generally, we would always use gloves when we pick up evidence.
Right, so you don't taint it.
Cross-contamination.
Sometimes there can be some markings from a gun that will be specific to a certain weapon. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And what do you call those?
I'm not sure that the ballistic guys, that's their job.
Right, and that's because when it comes out of the weapon and it ejects, sometimes it'll make a certain marking that you can then test the firearm to match it to show that this casing came from that gun, correct?
Correct. So these casings will be collected, preserved, and sent to the state police crime labs. They have ballistic specialists who specialize in determining all the striations and whatnot.
And sometimes you can get a fingerprint off the casing, is that correct?
Very rarely, just because the heat that comes out of the firearm actually burns off a lot of the oils in your skin, so it would be very rare that you would get it. You would be able to get it off of any rounds that were still in the firearm if you recovered a firearm at the scene that haven't been fired out of the weapon.
Or sometimes a round is ejected without being fired, and then it might have the fingerprint.
Correct, because the oils on your skin wouldn't burn off.
And that's why you're very diligent on how you manage. So what I'm doing right now is completely wrong.
It would get all thrown out in court.
Right, you normally use gloves or
Right.
something else to pick it up so you don't contaminate the evidence.
Or smudge a fingerprint that may or may not be there.
Sure.
Detective Saunders, this is a relatively small crime scene. Generally, how big would a crime scene be? Can you explain that to our viewers?
The bigger the better. You can always make a crime scene smaller, you can never make it bigger. Because what happens is, once people start moving their foot traffic around, you're losing your evidence. We can start a scene big and make it smaller. We can never start a scene small and make it bigger.
And the reason that is, Detective Saunders, is because if you made it too small, it would have been contaminated by all kind of people walking around, and that evidence wouldn't be good, right?
Correct.
And normally in a crime scene like this, like right now, we're violating all the rules, right?
We are.
None of us would be in here, right? How does that work? Explain for our viewers so they understand when you have a crime scene, what that means when it's secure.
Secure crime scene, I should be the only one in the crime scene until I'm done processing. The detectives will come in, they have questions to be answered, but they are not allowed into my crime scene until I'm able to document, conserve, and preserve all the evidence that needs to be preserved. Then it will be collected. I can walk them through the crime scene. Having too many people in, they could kick a shell casing, they could contaminate my evidence. So this crime scene is mine until I release it.
And sometimes they might require you vacuuming the crime scene for fibers or other evidence that you may hope to get off of a carpet surface, right? Because different surfaces will give different evidence, correct?
Correct. And we sometimes will swab certain areas for DNA evidence. Any blood evidence will be swabbed, and that will all get sent away to the lab.
Very technical stuff, no, Lieutenant Rodriguez?
Most definitely. So, Detective Saunders, along with getting the physical evidence, there's also another procedure that's important at a crime scene after you're done collecting the evidence. And can you explain to the audience what that would be, as far as speaking with people who might have seen things?
So basically, when I'm done, after everything is conserved and packaged as evidence, the detectives will come in and start interviewing witnesses.
And then one thing we haven't really talked about, because we don't have one here, is a body. So if you have a homicide, now that becomes another separate crime scene, the body itself, right?
Correct.
So when you're done collecting the evidence on this scene, maybe you can explain to the audience what that means when I'm talking about the body and being a crime scene in and of itself.
A body is part of a crime scene because we have evidence attached to the body. So it's the same thing. The bigger the better the crime scene, because there will be evidence around the body. Was it dragged? Are there footprints? Are there more than one set of footprints? So again, bigger the better. The body itself may contain evidence. It may contain skin under the fingernails if there was a struggle, bullets that may be contained within the body, which will be taken out as evidence during the autopsy process. So the body should not be touched, it should not be handled, it should be photographed.
And then properly preserved to take to the ME's office, who then does his own crime scene investigation on the body, pretty much.
Correct. So we basically preserve the body for the medical examiner's office, who will come down and take possession of the body for further autopsy.
Wow. Detective Saunders, maybe you can tell our viewers a little bit about you. What do you like to do off the job? We want to know about you.
I am an avid runner. I run a lot of half marathons. I do triathlons. I like to bike. I do a 300-mile bike ride every year in honor of fallen police officers. So I'm pretty active outside. I have a couple dogs who I just taught how to catch a Frisbee. So that's what I do outside.
An animal lover.
Outside of work.
I'm a dog lover too.
That's awesome, being in the position and seeing a lot of the things that you see. It's good to relieve some of that stress by doing things other than the actual work itself.
Detective Saunders, tell us, what is the best part of your job? What do you enjoy the most?
I think the thing that gets me the most excited is when I get a letter from somebody that I helped. Because we deal with a lot of people, and unfortunately we're in a lot of situations where they don't want us. They don't want us to be there, and we're there when they call 911 because something bad happened. So it's really nice when you're able to help somebody and they think of you outside of the event as actually having made an impact in their lives.
Yeah, you do a great job, and we appreciate your passion and commitment to the job. Lieutenant Rodriguez, maybe we should go on to the next step of this investigation, which would be go to the lead investigator and see what he's doing or she's doing. Who's assigned to the case? Do we know?
Detective Sean Roberts.
All right,
Let's go speak to Detective Sean Roberts. Hey, how's it going, Captain Souza? Can you brief us where we are right now currently with this investigation?
Basically, we're at the Detectives Division, and we just got done interviewing one of the suspects on this case. Detective Sean Robert is the lead investigator with Detective Matt Rogers, and they're going to brief me on what the outcome of the interview was.
So, Captain, as of right now, based on the incident with the shots fired, witnesses were able to identify a person. We have that person in custody. We interviewed him. Right now we have to bring the witnesses back into the station, get them on camera, get a good solid interview on them, lock down the rest of the facts that they gave us on the scene. So it's all audio and video recorded, so when that does go to court, that's part of the evidence procedure. And then we are still actively investigating the case. I think we have one more suspect that we're trying to identify and track down as a part of this case.
I know you've talked about a photo array. Can you explain that process, how you're going to put that together and what that involves?
Yep, so what we're going to do is we're going to put together 6 photos. One of them will include the suspect. The other 5 will just be fillers with the same biographical information similar to what our suspect is, in the hopes that the witnesses of the shooting will be able to pick out the suspect that we have in custody.
And as far as charging, are we all set to proceed with charges, or do we have to develop more evidence or more facts?
I think we're good with charges on the first suspect that we have in custody right now. We're just going to solidify that with the witnesses interview. And the second suspect we're still trying to identify. I think we're going to be close to getting an identity on him based on the facts that we have right now.
Okay, so this basically concludes the interview process, and we will be proceeding with charges later on.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Detective Rogers, it's come to my information that you've received some additional information regarding this case. Can you please tell me what it is?
Yes, from video surveillance, we're able to get a license plate of a suspect vehicle fleeing the scene. We now have that vehicle stopped, and we're working on getting a search warrant to process that vehicle.
And we will be executing those search warrants sometime today. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We will be executing that search warrant today.
Okay, thank you.
Well, as we're getting ready to wrap up another episode of Meet NBPD, we're so happy that you could join us today and get to meet some of our fine men and women doing an incredible job, passionate, dedicated, dealing with some of the most complex investigations, crime investigations, homicides, property crimes, which are very technical, time-consuming, and trying. Lieutenant Rodriguez.
I just want to thank the viewers for being with us today and allowing us to demonstrate how our detective division operates. I want to thank the men and women here and the great job they do. They're such an important part of this department and our family. Thank you very much.
Without question, Captain Souza leading this fine cadre of men and women. We're grateful for you and the men and women under your command that are on call 24 hours a day, leaving their families on a moment's notice while they're enjoying a birthday party, a wedding, or a walk, or running, as Detective Saunders likes to do, going for a run, and rushing back to work to tend to these very technical investigations. So thank you to all of you for the work that you do. We're very grateful, without question. And we look forward to seeing you at our next episode, Meet NBPD. Until then, have a great summer.
Body language can tell you all sorts of things. Like someone is having a stroke. Know the sudden signs. Learn fast. Face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty. Time to call 911 and get them to a hospital immediately. Learn the body language and spot a stroke fast.